I have been reading bread labels for a long time, and the same thing keeps striking me every single time I do it. The bread sitting in most grocery store aisles today looks like bread, feels like bread, and smells close enough to bread. But when you turn that bag around and read what is actually in it, you are looking at a chemistry project, not a loaf. That observation took me years to fully sit with, and once I did, I could not unsee it. I'm Ruth Coleman. I have spent the better part of 20 years paying close attention to what goes into everyday food, reading labels, cooking from scratch, and helping folks understand what they are actually buying when they walk down a grocery aisle. And bread, specifically packaged bread, is one of those topics I keep coming back to, because it is one of the places where the gap between what something looks like and what it actually is has grown the widest. Here is the honest truth most bread companies would rather you not think too hard about. Real bread has always been a simple thing: flour, water, salt, and something to make it rise. That is the whole formula, and it has fed people well for thousands of years. But somewhere along the line, that simplicity got replaced with a long list of additives, dough conditioners, synthetic emulsifiers, chemical preservatives, and ingredients that exist not to feed you, but to extend shelf life, improve texture on a production line, and cut costs at scale. The myth I want to push back on today is the idea that the word enriched on a bread label means something good has been added to help you. In most cases, it means the grain was stripped of what made it valuable in the first place, and then a handful of synthetic vitamins were dusted back in afterward. That is not enrichment, that is just less bad. By the end of this video, you will know exactly which 10 types of commercial bread I stopped buying, and precisely why, not vague concerns, but the specific ingredients that gave me pause, what they do, and what I reach for instead. You will walk away from this knowing more about what is in that bag than most people ever bother to find out. Before I get into the list, I want to mention that if you want to go deeper on all of this, the fuller picture behind what is in everyday food and what to look for instead, there is a guide available right now. The QR code is right there on the left side of your screen. Open your camera app on your phone, point it at that code, and it will take you straight to the guide without typing a single thing. And that same QR code will stay pinned in the top right corner of your screen for the rest of this video, so there is no pressure to stop now. Keep watching, and you can grab it whenever you are ready. Let me start with number 1, and that is the classic soft white sandwich loaf, the kind that has been a staple in American homes for generations. I grew up with it. Most of us did. But when you read the label on most of these loaves today, you find things like datum, which stands for diacetyl tartaric acid esters of mono and diglycerides. That is a synthetic emulsifier used to strengthen dough and give it that pillowy texture. You also often find sodium stearoyl lactylate, another dough conditioner derived from a synthetic process. Neither of these ingredients existed in a kitchen 100 years ago. They exist on a factory floor. My concern is not that any one of these will harm you in one sitting, but that most people are eating commercial bread every single day, and that daily exposure to a long list of synthetic compounds adds up in ways we are only beginning to understand. Number 2 is what I call fake whole wheat bread. You grab a loaf that says wheat on the front. It is brown. It looks hearty, and you feel like you made a solid choice. But flip it over. If the first ingredient is enriched bleached flour, and whole wheat flour is the third or fourth ingredient, that is mostly white bread with caramel coloring added to make it look darker. I have seen this on shelves from some of the most recognizable names in bread, and it is one of the most straightforward cases of misleading labeling in any grocery store. Number 3 is commercial multigrain bread. The word multigrain simply means there are multiple types of grain in the loaf. It says nothing about whether those grains are whole or refined, and in many cases they are largely refined. You will also frequently find high fructose corn syrup in these loaves, which has no business being in bread. Bread does not need added sugar at that level. A small amount of sugar can help activate yeast, but high fructose corn syrup in a multigrain loaf is there to make you reach for it again, not to nourish you. Now hold on, because the one coming up near the middle of this list is the one that surprised me the most when I first looked into it, and it is the one I think most folks would never guess. Keep watching for that one. Number 4 is light or reduced calorie bread. I understand the appeal. You want something that fits your goals without giving up your sandwich. But to make bread lighter and still hold together on a production line, manufacturers often add more emulsifiers, more gums like xanthan or guar, and sometimes more preservatives to compensate for the reduced structure. You are trading a few calories for a longer ingredient list. In my experience, that trade is rarely worth it. Number 5 is store-brand white bread. I am not picking on store brands as a category. I buy plenty of store-brand staples, and I think they are often excellent value. But in the case of white bread, store brands frequently compete on price by using whatever combination of dough conditioners and additives keeps production costs lowest. Calcium propionate is almost always in there, which is a common mold inhibitor. On its own, a small amount is not going to hurt anyone, but combined with all the other synthetic compounds in the same loaf, you are not eating bread the way bread was ever meant to be eaten. If you want to dig further into the broader topic of what is showing up in everyday packaged foods and what to do about it, that guide I mentioned earlier covers a lot of ground this short video can only touch on. The QR code is still there in the top right corner of your screen. Open your camera app, point it at that code, and you are there. Number 6 is the one I promised you, and this genuinely caught me off guard the first time I looked into it. Commercial sourdough bread. Real sourdough is made with a wild yeast starter, fermented slowly over many hours, and the fermentation process is actually what gives it that distinct sour flavor and makes it easier on your digestion. But most of the sourdough sitting in grocery stores today is not real sourdough. It is white bread with added vinegar or sour flavoring to mimic the taste, made in the same fast, additive-heavy process as every other commercial loaf. When I started reading labels on packaged sourdough and saw natural flavors and vinegar, without a single mention of a starter culture or long fermentation, I understood what was happening. It is a marketing word on a wrapper, not a description of how the bread was actually made. Number 7 is mass-market organic bread. I want to be fair here, because genuine organic bread is a real thing and can be a decent choice. But the organic label does not automatically mean simple ingredients. I have picked up organic loaves in the bread aisle and found lists nearly as long as their conventional neighbors. Organic versions of dough conditioners still exist. Organic preservatives still exist. The organic label covers how the grain was grown, not how many synthetic processing agents ended up in the final product. Read the full ingredient list, not just the front of the bag. Number 8 is packaged artisan bread. Grocery store bakery sections now sell loaves in paper bags with rustic fonts and words like hearth-baked or old world recipe. Some of these are genuinely better, but many of them are produced at a central facility, shipped in and dressed up with vocabulary that implies a skilled baker was involved at every step. Again, the ingredient list tells you the truth. If it says cultured wheat starch, sodium stearoyl lactylate, or any of the usual dough conditioners, it is not artisan bread by any honest definition. Around this point, I want to invite you to join us here on this channel if you have not already. Every week I walk through practical, plain-spoken information about the food we eat, the money we spend on it, and the old-fashioned ways of doing things that still hold up. If you have a question, drop it in the comments. I read them and I answer them. It is a good community, and I am glad you are here. Number 9 is honey wheat bread. The word honey on a label makes you feel like something wholesome went into the loaf. And technically, yes, there is usually honey in there, but look at how far down the ingredient list it sits. In most cases, honey wheat bread still leads with enriched flour, still contains high fructose corn syrup or sugar alongside the honey, and still has the full roster of emulsifiers and preservatives. The honey is present in a quantity too small to do much of anything besides appear on the front panel and make you feel better about your choice. Number 10 is commercial gluten-free sandwich bread. I want to be careful here because for people with celiac disease or a genuine gluten sensitivity, having a packaged gluten-free option is genuinely important, and I respect that. But for people buying gluten-free bread simply because they assume it is the healthier option, I want to gently push back on that assumption. Many commercial gluten-free loaves replace wheat flour with a combination of rice flour, tapioca starch, potato starch, and a range of binders and gums to compensate for the missing gluten structure. The ingredient list can be just as long and just as processed as any conventional loaf. Being gluten-free does not automatically mean being less processed. It just means a different set of processed ingredients. Now, what do I actually do instead? A few things have worked well for me over the years. The first and most reliable is making a simple homemade loaf. You do not need fancy equipment, and you do not need to spend much time. A basic 3 or 4 ingredient bread requires very little hands-on effort, and when you make it yourself, you know exactly what went into it. The second thing is finding a genuine local bakery, not a chain in-store bakery, but an actual small bakery that bakes on site and can tell you what their ingredients are. In many communities, you will find one if you look, and the price difference compared to a grocery store loaf is often smaller than people expect. The third thing is learning to read a label quickly. You should be able to recognize every ingredient in your bread without needing to look anything up. Flour, water, yeast, salt, perhaps a little oil or a natural sweetener. If you are reading a word you cannot pronounce or would not find in your kitchen, that is useful information. If what I've covered here has you thinking about what else is in your everyday food and what the fuller picture looks like, the guide is there for you. Just open your camera app on your phone and point it at that QR code still up in the top right corner of your screen. It goes further on all of this than I can in a short video, and it is yours the moment you scan it. Here is the bottom line. No single ingredient in commercial bread is likely to cause immediate harm. That is not my argument. My argument is simpler than that. We have taken a food that has been made well and eaten safely for thousands of years with a handful of ingredients, and we have made it complicated in ways that benefit manufacturers far more than they benefit you. Longer shelf life means less waste in a warehouse. Dough conditioners mean faster production on a line. Chemical preservatives mean bread can travel farther and sit longer. None of those improvements were made with your health in mind. They were made with logistics and profit margins in mind. There is very little money in teaching people to bake a simple loaf at home or to choose bread with 4 ingredients. The whole structure of commercial food production depends on you not thinking too hard about the label. So the simple act of reading it, really reading it, is one of the most useful things you can do the next time you stand in the bread aisle. This week, pick up the bread you usually buy and read the full ingredient list. Not the front panel, Not the claims about fiber or whole grains, the actual ingredient list, from first to last. Notice how many items you cannot identify. That alone will tell you a lot. This month, if you feel ready, try baking a simple loaf at home just once and see how it compares in taste, cost, and how it makes you feel. You may not go back. The bread aisle does not have to be complicated. It just has to be honest. And now you have the tools to figure out which loaves are telling you the truth. If you want the deeper answers and the fuller breakdown on everything we covered today, open your camera app right now and scan the QR code in the top right corner of your screen. The guide is waiting there, and it is the place to go when you want to go further than a single video can take you. I would love to know, do you bake your own bread at home, or have you found a store-bought loaf with a short, honest ingredient list? Drop it in the comments below. And if you want to keep going on topics like this, there is another video coming up next that I think you are really going to find useful. Make sure you are subscribed so you do not miss it. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.